Okay, we're gonna do a walkthrough of this Preseen for the March 2025 exam. We know that this is the low season exam for most students in December or June. Okay, but anyway, let's run through this together. Now, as usual, every walkthrough I will remind students some of the basic things that you need to remember. Number one, you have to read this Preseen case study as many times as you can until most of the information about this particular entity is in your mind. Because when you sit for the actual exam, what you do not want is to spend a lot of time to navigate information, to read these and there and start searching for information. So that is what you don't really want. So one way is you got to familiarize yourself. So what you should do is you should read it again and again. Now, of course, you can read it yourself, and what I'm going to do is I just thought of giving you a different perspective so that when you read it together with me, okay, you can see it differently. Okay, there's a lot of lectures in the internet. You go to YouTube, you can Google. Many of them release their Preseen discussion. So if you want to do that, I really encourage. There's nothing wrong to listen to more. And the whole idea is we are not trying to predict, or I'm not trying to predict what's coming out in the exam. But I will just start off saying, okay, maybe with this kind of information, they could possibly relate to this part of the syllabus. Now, the other thing about this exam question is when you go to the exam, you're going to get another sets of exhibits. Usually there'll be 4 of them, right? And the 4 exhibits will give you additional information. So that additional information usually will be in addition to the Preseen, and that's where they can really bring in the content to test you in the exam. And don't forget, in the exam you have different sets of paper. So that means you don't just have one set of questions with all the same three questions. You can have another set that maybe they will change 1 or 2 of the example or the questions inside. Okay, let's just not talk about too much. Let's just go right in. This time the question is interesting because it's not on a profit-making company, but it's on a charity. So the focus might be a little bit different, especially in terms of the governance. In this case, you also see their structures are very different. If you have read this, you would know that this is a company limited by guarantee. What exactly is that? I'll explain to you later. So the good thing about Preseen is it gives you the opportunity to Google out something that you don't understand. So when you go for the exam, you will not like, oh, I don't know what is this. Okay, it gives you the Historic Places is a charity which operates in this country called Irradisha. Okay, so it aims to preserve historical sites. So they gave you this Irradisha sector information. As usual, they will always give you information about industry and then the company. So of course this time, because it's a charity, they didn't call it an industry, because industry is more appropriate for profit-making organizations. Okay, so overview about these charity sectors. Charities or charitable organization promote the welfare of society and public interest. So their objectives are very different. So I just want you to remember, when we talk about agency theory, we always like to discuss who will be the principal and who will be the agent. And like a company, the principal will obviously be the shareholder. But what about a charity? And you have to understand that charity may not really have a legit owner, like a shareholder that they pump in the money and expect return. So the setting of objectives can be very different. Okay, so always bear in mind who you are, especially this time because the questions is on an MPO. Be very careful that you don't end up sometimes students, as they do the questions, they'll do halfway and then their mindset start to switch towards profit-making organization, and then you answer as though this is a PLC. Now then it will be very disastrous. Okay, now they carry out many different activities like helping the sick and disabled, providing poverty relief education, preserving history. I think this is what they are trying to relate to this particular entity here called historic places. Campaigning issues affecting society. Charities raise funds through various methods. So this is how they sustain themselves. They use donation by those who support their work, and they also do commercial activities. Okay, so if you heard of the concept called social enterprises, these are example of MPO where they have commercial activities and they become social enterprises. If you have not heard of the word, you can Google, okay, Google it, and then you'll be able to understand what I mean. Now, the charitable sectors include large national charities and also smaller charities that operate on a single site. So what is their legal position? Charities in Rhodesia are often set up as a company limited by guarantee. What exactly is that? So if you read, they actually give you some idea what is that. They say it's a company limited by guarantee, does not have any share or shareholder. They don't have share, they don't have shareholder. They are underwritten by guarantors who guarantee to pay a specified amount of money to help settle the debts only in the event of insolvency. Now, so basically you are like not having shareholder, but your company cannot have no shareholder, in the sense like, where are they going to get the money? So that's why there are this group of people that they will say, I'm going to guarantee certain amount of commitment. So let's say we have 3 person, each of us will guarantee $1 million. So the charity is able to absorb a liability that is up to $1 million, basically. So if anything happens, you can sue this guarantor, but up to the amount that they guarantee. But these are not owners. They don't own the charity. You understand? They don't own the charity. Now, because the charity technically has no owner and no shareholder, you'll be wondering that how, if the charity make money, how do they distribute dividend? Now, because of that, they are not allowed to distribute dividends. So that's why you can see over here, they also say that the surpluses are not distributed to the guarantors, but they're invested in the charity to promote charitable objectives. So charities' activities are determined by their governing document called Constitution. Now, many charities raise funds by means of surpluses from commercial activities, such as running shops. So commercial activities are carried out through subsidiaries companies that the charities own. So that's basically the structures that they have. So charities in Rhodesia are regulated by Charity Supervisory Board, established by this Rhodesia central government. So CSB aims to ensure that the general public can be confident that donations to charity will be used for proper charitable purpose. Now, and when I see this, what crossed my mind is things that concerns with internal control, audit, because of all the kind of fraudulent activities. Okay, so internal controls, audit, and fraud. I mean, if I give you an exhibit and say that maybe there was an alleged fraud, that this charity were not using the money according to what they're supposed to, you know, that kind of things could come in, and then they may ask you in what way you could introduce internal controls that can enhance their check and balance, so that these sort of things will not happen. You know, it's so easy for something like that to link to charities, right? Okay. Now, CSB investigates allegations that charities are not acting in accordance with the charitable objectives, and they are behaving unethically, or they are misusing the fund. So immediately when I see that, I can also relate to example, you know, if they ask you questions like, what's the advantage of having an audit of your charity? Let's say you're doing a voluntary audit. Now, one of the advantage I can immediately relate is to minimize my risk of non-compliant, and that will reduce the risk of these problems of being investigated. So that could be one of the advantage that I am foreseeing by undertaking this kind of voluntary audit. Okay, now again, like I say, we don't know what's in the question, we're just trying to speculate, but in my mind we're just trying to, like, well, let's say, get ready, like, if they ask, then I can have something in my mind. The content of charities account is governed by the Statement of Recommended Practice, SORP, published by CSB. They require all charities account to be audited. So you see, they already say that. The larger charities, the annual income exceed 10 million, will need to report on the internal control and their risk management system, and they must be reviewed by the external auditor. So there is a requirement that they must go for audit. So it's not a voluntary thing, but only thing is, once their size is big enough, they will have to do additional disclosure. So if you're a smaller charity, you probably have to then see if this disclosure is needed or not. The charities and commercial subsidiaries wholly owned by the charities are not subject to taxation. So that's the perks that they get being a charity. Heritage subsector. Many charities in Rhodesia exist for the purpose of preserving the country's heritage. So that's the key things that they are looking at. Okay, heritage at urban and rural site. Heritage means things of historical or cultural value which are worthy of preservation. So historical sites, you know, like maybe you have a settlement that was there 1,000 years ago, and then you all just want to preserve it so people can visit and see the ancient settlement and stuff like that. Charities in heritage subsectors conserve and maintain historical sites, including buildings, museums, and objects kept at those sites. They generally allow public admission at these sites which they maintain. Heritage charity aims to bring history to life for visitors. They seek to encourage public appreciation of and participation in the heritage. This includes encouraging members of the public to visit the sites and work for the charities as an unpaid volunteers. So they need volunteers, and they don't pay them. And one way of them attracting volunteers is to increase their interest. So by encouraging visitors to go and see and appreciate their work, people might be moved to become a volunteers. Heritage charities also concerned with education. They host visits from groups of school children and students at their sites. Some establish formal links with schools and universities. Now, a number of charities provide training in conservation and other activities. So the two largest charities in Rhodesia are Historic Places, which is the company that we are now looking at, which mainly looks after sites that are over 300 years old. And then there's another one called Leaving the Past, which they care for sites that they are less than 300 years old. Okay, so that's basically the main distinction between HP and LTP. Okay, now heritage charities, significant stakeholders. So for this kind of structures that they are based against MPO, right? I think stakeholders will be a very critical aspects, because you need to know that in the first place the existence of a charity. How do they sustain themselves as a charity? it's always through people donating money, people working for free. And when we look at stakeholders, I mean, obviously all the thing about stakeholders that we study in your SBL, we talk about understanding stakeholder claims, understanding stakeholder assessment. We look at Mendilo, we must see which are the more influential stakeholders, who are the less influential stakeholders. I think all that must immediately like flash out in your mind. Okay, so they have identified for us the stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders? Just a quick one. They have trustee. Okay, so they have trustee, they have executive management, paid employees, volunteers, donors, members, I don't know who are members, non-visitor members, they have guarantors, and SCB is the regulatory body, and even the media. Okay, so they've identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different stakeholders. What do they do? In what way that they are interested in you, or that you would possibly implicate them? You know, we look at stakeholders on both ends, how we affect them and how they affect us. Okay, so trustees are individuals who oversee a charity's activity. They are responsible for ensuring that it acts according to its objectives and constitutions and complies with regulation. Trustees ensure that the charity's control and risk management are effective. The charity is managed with honesty, integrity. They develop charity strategic direction in conjunction with the executive management. The trustees are accountable for the charity's activities to the charity supporters. They put an asterisk there, charity supervisory board and general public. Trustees are not paid for their time and they receive no employment benefit. Now, unlike a profit-making company, usually we look at a unitary board that we call them board of directors. But most of the time, MPO, they will operate on a two-tier board, where the upper board are usually the board of trustee. And if you recall the study on public governance, we talk about the role of this board of trustees, which I think you need to make sure that you pay some time. If you have forgotten, at least you read them through before you go for the exam, since it's like directly on this area, you know. So if you cannot understand the role of the trustee, I think it's kind of like dangerous for you before you go for the exam lah. Okay, so then they have executive management, which appears to me these are people that's involved in the day-to-day running of the business. In this case, of course, it's the charity activities. So executive managers, okay, they are employees responsible for the day-to-day operations. They normally meet regularly as an executive board. So I think this really confirmed my understanding of operating a two-tier board, an upper board, a supervisory board, that we call it the board of trustee, and then you have the executive board. The lower board is the executive board. So they have paid employees, including head office administrative staff and staff working full-time, part-time at the site. Volunteers, they carry unpaid work at the site. In their spare time, they have no contractual obligation to keep volunteering. And to me, volunteer is it's a benefit to you, it's an opportunity, but it's also a risk to you, because using volunteers that they are not always there, they could make mistakes, they could be less honest, you know, because they are not there all the time. They have a better tendency or higher tendencies that they may, example, they may steal your things. Well, they may be people who like that kind of things, right? Okay, so donors give money to charities without expecting anything in return. They have one-off donation or subscription basis, which is quite normal. Okay, members pay an annual fee or a one-off fee for a lifetime membership. Normally lifetime means they pay a bit more lah, then they don't have to pay every year, which gives them certain privileges depending on what the charity does. The most important privilege which membership gives are free admission to the site operated by the charity, plus they are able to vote at the AGM, and by voting they include electing the trustee. That means they can have a say over who will oversee the charity. Now, they are not shareholders, because if we say they can vote, right? They are not shareholders. They don't own the charity. They don't have responsibility for the debt. They only have power to vote for who they want to govern the charity. Okay, now non-members, they basically visit the sites and they pay admission fees to enter. So guarantors are guaranteeing the specified amount to help the charity's debts if the charity become insolvent, but are generally not otherwise involved in the charity activity. So the guarantors are not the trustee. They're just people with money that they are willing to underwrite certain amount of the debts in the event if the charity is not going concern. Okay, CSB acts on behalf of the Rhodesia's government to oversee charities activities. Media, they say story in the media can illustrate the good work of the charities. However, media coverage can be also a source of bad publicities, like charity wasting money. I think you already can see some leads or indication, okay, of this kind of potential problem. And like I said just now, the controls aspects of the charity can come in a very relevant aspects of these questions. Okay, just now we read there's an asterisk mention about these trustee charity supporters. So they say stakeholders who give money on non-financial resources, whether non-financial means like their time and so on, whether they are donors, volunteers, members or non-members, visitors, they are all considered as the supporter of the charity. They support in their own way lah. Okay, so how would charity get their money? So the heritage charities income, they say, one, they get it through donation. Obtain donation in various ways, contacting possible donors through post, email, text message, giving visitors a chance to donate when they visit the site through donation boxes. You know, all these things really give me a strong this urge to relate to things that controls will come in. How do you make sure that the money will not go missing? And what can be the new technology that can be used to make all these processes become more secure, okay, and also improve the efficiency of getting the money and so on. So like by post, you know, people nowadays don't really do that. By text message, don't forget the scammer are also using the same kind of messages, trying to trick people into giving money to the scammer. Okay, so that's why what you got to do from your front, okay, is important. So do think about that. All right, just do think about that. Now, charities encourage donations by advertising, including adverts on television or on social media. So to me, I think digital marketing is also another aspect of the questions that they can easily brought it in. Okay, can be brought it into the questions with something concerning digital marketing, because that's how you want to reach out to the younger generation, especially volunteers, you see. So imagine that they ask you to suggest some digital marketing strategy, okay, that can be useful. Now, most charity have websites which allow donors to donate. Charity retain contact details of their previous donor and focusing on the marketing campaigns to get further donation. Well, you know, when I see all these, I think it's even more relevant for us to relate to e-marketing, digital marketing strategy, and even your analytics, you know, because your database is there. How we could make use of analytics to improve the level of donations that we're going to collect, which is the money that you need to run your charity. For example, when is the more likely time for people to donate? Is it beginning of the month, middle of the month, or end of the month? Which one that you think is usually more successful, so that you can decide the best time to blast out your email? That's all from analytics. Okay, membership, annual or lifetime. Okay, admission fee, they are charged to non-members who visit their charity, so they collect admission fee. Commercial activities, commercial income can come from various sources. Yeah, most of the sites have catering facilities, they have restaurant, they have cafes. Smaller catering facilities may only provide snacks and drinks. The larger one will offer full meal. Charities may open some of their sites for hospitality events, such as corporate events and weddings. Okay, now most sites also have a shop. Smaller shops may just sell guidebooks and other items connected to the sites, like books about historical period. So they still use books. You'll be like, oh, okay. So that's like so old-fashioned, right? Okay, do people still go for all that? So that's why nowadays people are using smart apps. So it's a very good basis of a case study that let us go into digitalization, how the new technology could help the charity to transform itself. Like instead of going for a guidebook, you probably will make use of your smart apps. You could scan the QR code, or you could use things like, you know, as you walk towards the sites, come to GPS certain locations, what kind of informations will appear to you. You know, that kind of things can all come in. And interactive apps can also be helpful. You know, like maybe the apps is programmed in such a way that you can scan certain QR code, and then you have certain activities that can keep you more occupied. You can use AI to come up with languages translation. You know, all the digital stuff can come in. Okay, they go on and says that some of these items may be branded with the charity's logo. Okay, a small number of charities in Rhodesia also operate shops which are not at their sites, but they're located in shopping area. I mean, you can imagine that, huh? If you've been to all these kind of tourist spots, yeah. These shops sell the same items which are sold at the charity sites. Some also sell their products online. Okay. Okay, what about their expenses? They say the charities normally incur the following main categories of expenditure. The site operating costs, these are the day-to-day running expenses, the wages of the employees, site maintenance and conservation costs. They require varying amount of maintenance depending on their age and condition. Some maintenance takes place regularly throughout each year and may be undertaken by the charity's employee or outside contractors, and sometimes one-off projects. And could that be a project management question? I don't know. Okay, but I mean, I'm just trying to say it's so easy now. I can easily just draw in a project management question, that you are the role of a project manager and you will have to oversee a major restoration project. Okay, so there are a couple of things that you have to look after. You know, the same kind of things that we study about project management. Charities also incur costs conserving historical objects at their sites. Usually require complex treatment carried out by specialists. So you can just Google and see in what way, you know, these kind of treatments could be. Now, administrative costs include fundraising, marketing their activities, administering membership, salary costs of the executive management, head office admin, and they can suffer a bad publicity and attract less support if the administration costs are usually too high. And what exactly is too high? Do we have a benchmark? Like, is there a percentage? You know, some people say maintain it around not more than 20%, that kind of things. Okay, so they're giving you their challenge, the external environment that they're facing. The principal challenge which charities face is the variety of factors that can cause deterioration in the sites and objects which they are trying to preserve. So we are looking at physical risk, okay? Alright, physical risk. Physical risk can come from so many aspects. You know, example like climate risk is a form of physical risk. If there's a flood going on, will it destroy the site or not? Okay. We also look at physical risk in terms of, for example, vandalism. Visitors come and vandalize. You know, it's so common. You know, if you see that how activists sometimes they're angry over certain things, they come and they splash paint and stuff like that. It's unimaginable, but people do that. Okay, so these include passage of time and natural conditions such as high humidity. So the climate is supposed to be a source of risk. Pollution and violent weather condition caused by climate change. I just said that, right? Climate change can accelerate deterioration or results in significant damage, wear and tear. Having a large number of visitors can also affect the site. So you know, things on ESG, on environmental aspects, on sustainability and environmental reporting can all be very relevant. Okay, large charities also are dependent on recruiting sufficient volunteers to ensure that they have enough staff at the site. Volunteers are not paid, so saving charity salary costs, but their hours and their attendance may not be regular. And we just said about the problem earlier. And what if they volunteer but they don't come? Okay, so they may decide to stop volunteering suddenly. And that is an important stakeholder support that you have to bear in mind, because anything that can cause these volunteers to pull out their support can be a big problem to you. So you might want to look at that aspects of the stakeholder and their claims, and you do not want to upset them. Okay, now heritage charity face the challenge of non-heritage charity are also seeking donation. So potential donors are likely to receive communications from many charities. Charities which are in the news at particular times may raise considerable sums of money, but this may mean that donors give less to other charity which they normally support. So it's like publicity is very critical. So in a way that if, let's say, if you are able to get the limelight in social media in the way that you promote, I think it gives you a better advantage, right? Okay, now at present there is a recession, so you do have a very negative external environment that things are not doing well. Okay, charities have key performance indicators. So they are giving you the KPI that they use to measure performance. And let's see what are the performance indicators that they are looking at. So they are looking at financial indicators. So obviously, all right, so they're measuring money. Okay, so what kind of financial indicators? The membership fee, donations, all that. Expenses, these are the expenses that they just highlighted to us. And one thing we have to bear in mind is the proportion, not too high. So for administrative expense, so if you see the trend is going up, then you got to be careful okay, whether they have any operating margin or whether they have any surplus of income over expenses. Now, non-financial indicators, so they look at things like commitment, okay, commitment in terms of members, donors, education and development, in terms of number of educational visits to the sites, training days, conservation in terms of the hours spent on conservation, objects that they work on, projects, satisfaction, the feedback from members, feedback from employees, how many percent of the members are renewing, environment, resource consumption, energy obtained, waste recycling, emission. So all that will be a good KPI for environmental reports or sustainability report. I can't be sure if this could relate to Baldrige Performance Excellence, because when we talk about Baldrige Performance Excellence, I hope you remember the chart now. We talk about the leadership, and then we talk about the strategy, and then the customers, and then your workforce, your operations, your results, and the way how you measure performance. So if they suddenly, but it's a bit different because since it's a performance excellent, most of the time they like to focus on financial results lah, but they can still focus on all this. So who knows, all right? But you just want to like be prepared for performance management. So it appears to me performance management is a very likely area of the question. Okay, so something that concern with performance. How do you show to your stakeholders that your charity is doing well? Okay, now after they finish telling you about the sector, the charity industry in Rhodesia, now they give you this particular charity called Historic Places. So HP operates in the heritage charity sector that was founded 120 years ago. It is a large charity that look after 350 sites, and they're all over 300 years old, which we know that's part of the objective. Immediately appeared to me that's even more important for you to look at IT, because it's just too many sites that you have to deal with, and there's too much of data that you have to manage. So if you can use IT, it truly will helps you in so many ways. Okay, now many of the sites are castles, museum. It does not look after any sites that's with religious connection. So basically religious is out lah. They want to stay on that neutral ground. HP is a company limited by guarantee. Their senior management and most of their administrative staffs are based at the head office in the capital city, and their commercial activities are undertaken by subsidiary that HP owns 100%. Okay, mission and value. So whenever you evaluate their performance, the way how they react to certain things, always remember that they must be grounded on their mission and their value. Their mission is to permanently protect and preserve sites entrusted to it and promote the interest and access. Now, they are not just to protect, they promote. They want people to know, and they want to give people access. That means they want to open up for people. So example, like I say, if a question's on project management, a restoration site, and then suddenly you see that the site will have to be closed for 6 months or 1 year, and that will be basically against your mission, because your mission is to give access to people, and what you're doing exactly is to limit the access. So you might need to ask yourself in that way, what can I do so that I will uphold my mission. Now, the value which HP promotes are historical truth, accessibility, enjoyment, involvement, transparency, inclusivity, diversity, social environmental responsibility, and stewardship. So that there's a lot of values that basically allow us to discuss ESG, right? When you want to talk about diversity policy, it's a social aspects. Okay, how you want to make sure that you use different kind of volunteers. It's not just a particular race. How do you want to make sure that the contents are in multiple languages and not in one particular language, you know, that kind of thing. Now, HP has a two-tier governance board, so exactly like what I said just now, two-tier structures. They have a board of trustee, they have board of executive directors, so please do a quick revision about their role. What does the board of trustee do? The board of trustee is responsible for overall control and management. That's already like one of the roles they say. Developing strategies in consultation with the board of directors is another role that they've just said. But on top of that, there are many more roles that the board of trustees can do. Like for example, if you can ask for government grant, it's usually the board of trustees that will be the one that the principal conduit to speak to the government representatives. They are the one that's responsible on the human resources, like appointing the executive directors and so on. So there's a lot more. So please do read up before you walk into the exam. Okay. The board of trustee has an audit, nomination, remuneration committee. So typical. So they have 9 members. There's a chair. Okay. So the chair is appointed by the trustee. Does not have a fixed term. The HP members do not vote on the appointment of the chair. So the trustee themselves will decide who will be the chair. Okay. Then there is nominated trustee. 5 trustees are nominated by the nomination committee. Their appointment is subject to a confirmation vote by the member. Remember, members, they don't own the charity, but they have the power to vote. So if that's the case, they encourage people to be a member. Okay. So if they are confirmed in the office by the vote, then they will serve for 3 years. And then they will seek a reappointment. So it's not like a typical corporate governance that's on an annual basis. They go for 3 years. Okay. So you know, of course 3 years means less work, save costs, but it also means that if you've got somebody that is not good, they can stay on for a longer period and they can cause more damage. Now, elected member elected trustee. There are 3 trustees elected by the member at the AGM. The trustee elected by the members also serve for 3 years and they can seek re-election at the end of the 3 years. So that's basically how they got all the 9 members. The board of trustees is supported by the board of executive directors. These are called the executive board. Executive directors are appointed by the board of trustees. Now there's the role, right? They are the one that will appoint the board of executive directors. The board of trustees will appoint them at the advice of the nominations committee. The members do not vote on the appointment of executive directors. So that's why the people that will run the show is all through the board of trustees. The executive board is responsible for the day-to-day management and operations. The executive board is headed by the CEO. The remunerations of executive board, including CEO, is determined by the remunerations committee. So these are the things that we are looking at. Okay. Now, you know, as we talk about all that, it's most probably, I would say it's good that they might ask you things as concerning governance. You might be asked to distinguish their role, what role the trustees is going to do, how they're different with the executive board. They might ask you to look at how you might want to choose the trustee member, you know, since they talk about diversity policy, since they talk about how you want to make sure that there are many stakeholders' interests are being represented. So all these things could easily comes in. Okay. And since they are also responsible for the strategic direction, you know, they can ask you things concerning their growth strategies. I don't know whether the information have it, but we'll take a look later. Now, so the executive board structures, so the CEO, operations, finance, marketing, HR, IT directors. There's a code of conduct which trustees, EDs, and paid employees and volunteers, everybody is supposed to follow. The code includes core principles relating to professional behavior, commitment, adherence to decisions made by the board, confidentiality, conflict of interest, as well as bribery. Okay, acquisition of sites. HP acquires building and other sites as gifts from the previous owner, or by purchasing them using the surplus fund. Okay, so they have two ways. One is people donate the site to them. The other way is they can buy using their money. So in this case, like I said, it's really makes sense for you to think of the strategic direction, like the balancing of the charitable objectives. So how you want to run commercial activities, at the same time you want to rely on donation, your growth strategy, okay, how you would like to expand by having more and more sites. Okay, they will only acquire sites which are of national importance and are under threat of destructions or deterioration over time. So these are how they evaluate why they want to acquire. So question will be, do you think like they should deviate from this policy? Okay, operational activities, they say every HP site is open to members and visitors. Admission charge is payable by non-members to access the site. The amount charged vary between the sites depending on what can be seen at the site. How often sites are open also vary. Site must sometimes be closed for a period of maintenance, and opening staff also depend on the staffing level. So if your consistency is not there, you're going to have a big problem. Okay, HP aims to enhance the experience of visitors to its sites by providing guides to give tour and answer questions about the sites, on-site information, exhibition. And it also aims to stimulate interest by encouraging children to spot features at a site and keep objects there. Now, don't you think all these things can be easily replaced or helped by technology? So it's like these are the things that technology will come so handy to take over some of the role that you depend on the guide, you know. HP education objective is focused on hosting visits of groups of school children, explaining to them the significance of what they are visiting. The sites also offer special events such as performances about the site's history aimed at children and family. Every site has a shop. The size of the shop determines what is stocked there. Every site has a catering facilities where visitors can sit down and eat. Smaller sites only provide snacks and drinks. Larger sites offer full meal. Is similar to what we read just now. HP best known sites include Mallock, Dogdean, Birmingham, Stowwater, and Trueworth. Okay, so these are the sites that they are saying. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 350, right? Yeah. Okay, key stakeholders. So they give you the information about the stakeholders. They have about 5 million members. You know, that's really like a lot, you know. Okay, so I don't really know what's the population of this country, but if you're gonna have 5 million members, it seems like that's a lot over here. Okay, now then it says that they only offer annual membership. So the questions might relate to evaluate, do you think a lifetime membership is a good idea? You might have to give some advantages or disadvantages. Okay, so the benefit of membership include free admission to the site, regular newsletters and emails. Members have right to attend their AGM. They can vote on the appointment of trustee. They can receive annual report, financial statement, approve appointment of the auditors. They can submit resolutions which are non-binding. Okay, non-binding means it's only advisory in nature. They can vote. You remember we discussed this before when we talked about OECD principles. You can propose a resolution for voting, but it's advisory. even if the resolution is passed, it's up to the trustee whether they want to follow or not. That's why they say which trustee must take into consideration. It's just for consideration. All right. Okay, they have about 4,000 full and part-time employees, including the staff who work for the commercial subsidiary. They work at the head office and the sites. Some work for a long time. Okay. Now, HP pays average salary for job across the charity sector, which are lower than what would be paid for equivalent jobs in commercial organization, which I think is quite understandable lah. And many employees are prepared to accept a lower salary than they would obtain outside because they know their mission, which again appeared to me your corporate citizenship. Of course, you cannot use the corporate because they're not a company, but their values, their missions are important so that you can continue to get the support of your stakeholders. And they have about 20,000 volunteers that play very significant role. Predominantly, they are working as a guide, catering facility, shops, and they maintain the sites. The choice of suppliers and inventory policy of the catering facilities and shops is determined by their procurement function. They use external contractors for regular site maintenance. Contractors for large single projects are employed on a one-off basis. So projects are ad hoc, project by project basis. Their information systems are adequate for its administration needs and are fully compliant with data protection regulation. HP computerized information systems cover major operational function. So they have a website which publicizes its activities and allows donations to be made and for members to join. There are separate web pages for each of their site, which include the detail, their history, their maps, their facilities, their news. It's a very basic website generally. So this tells us that they do have a very functional system, but nothing fancy, nothing great. A lot of rooms for change and improvement. Okay. Now, HP has a risk register. You know, as usual, every pre-scene they will give you some information about risk, right? Okay. So, what is the risk? What are the risks that they are talking about? Threat to reputation. So, bad publicity can lead members to not willing to renew their membership, don't donate, don't volunteer. I think this has been repeated so many times. It made me feel like, wow, you know, they're bound to have something that will help to relate to reputation issue, reputation risk that can cause people to withdraw their support. I mean, just get ready lah, you know, for things like that. Other threats to income: recession can limit donors' willingness to donate. Visiting the sites is one of the very many leisure available to individual, but the risk that the visit will become less popular, reducing income from admission and commercial activities. So how do you want to promote? How do you want to increase the awareness that people will be willing to come? Okay, loss of employees and volunteer. So again, this will relate to your reputation, obviously. So they say if employees and volunteers leave and they cannot be easily replaced, the experience offered to visitors of the sites will be affected. The sites will be open less frequently, and that's like a real frustration. If every time you go, you find like, how come you all don't stick to one time one? Okay, so conservation work requires specialist staff, and loss of this member may also affect their ability to carry out this work. Insufficient financial resources. If income is less than expected, they will not have the money to carry out all the work. Performance by suppliers or contractors. Poor quality goods provided by suppliers can reduce visitor satisfaction, and poor performance by contractors can mean that HP does not obtain the value for money and may also jeopardize the conservation of the building. And then we have health and safety. Now this can affect people working and at visiting the sites. The sites have potential hazard like slippery surface, steep staircases. Weather can create hazardous condition. So a couple of times they have given us hint that they can talk about climate. Okay, so climate and weather. They say poor weather can affect visitors at the sites, and extreme weather like excessive heat, wind or rain can also damage the site. So finally, cybersecurity come in. I mean, it's quite obvious that you have a database of millions of members that they will donate money to the site. If you happen to have this unauthorized access, it's a very bad reputation. So do take note about cybersecurity, how we deal with cybersecurity. Okay. Now, the computer systems are risks of disruption, jeopardizing admin, leakage of data of the member donor will bring legal action, loss of reputation, unwillingness for them to continue to donate. So things like that are quite normal. So if they want to again draw an example that deals with this form of internal control also can, but it become more specific lah. Like I just mentioned to you, scammer could also use your identity to cheat people. Okay, website extract. The extract covers the key actions. So they say inspire. We want to inspire everyone to visit us in an imaginative and authentic ways. We aim to stimulate visitors' mind and provoke emotion. So you just suddenly let me think, wow, you should give that kind of 4D experience using computer hologram, that wearable devices. That suits so well, right, to inspire. So if they're thinking about strategies about how they can improve visitation, maybe this can be one of those hype and excitement that the younger people might be going after. Okay, now access, they say access to our country history enriches lives. We want our visitors to have privilege of standing on the spot where history happened and to live our country story, engage and entertain. We want everyone who visits us love the time they spend with us. We engage visitors by bringing the fascinating true stories of our sites to life. We use creative and imagination to delight and entertain visitors. So again, they are repeating the same phrase: imaginative, creativity and imagination. Involve. Millions share our belief that history is important for everyone. We want to provide opportunities for them to engage with us. We rely on general support, donors and volunteers. We want to build relationship with them. Conserve. We protect our sites and objects which urgently need our care, looking after them for the benefit of present and future generation. And that is the key theme of sustainability. What is the meaning of sustainable development? The way that how the present generations will meet their needs without compromising the future generation to meet theirs. So the same idea, whatever that you conserve is not just for now but for the future. So we aim to preserve and develop our collections, increasing our understanding through expert research and sustain. We protect the future of our sites by being part of this worldwide fight against climate change. So I think that environmental aspects will be very well fit in. Okay, so they might talk about why do we want to do an environmental report, or what kind of information that we will include in the environmental report. If you do study a bit of your SBR, you might have come across IFRIS S1 and S2 about sustainability reporting and climate related reporting. Okay, so anyway, it's not important. It's just to give you an idea that there's a lot of things that we can put up in these kind of reports to tell our stakeholders basically in what way climate can be a form of risk and opportunities, and how that they could affect the charity financially. Okay, so we limit our impact by using greener energy, minimizing waste, increasing the use of recycled resources. Performance is measured, so they do measure performance against increasing rigorous sustainability target. So they might have a ready system that collect this kind of information so that they can have it to report it if they want to. Okay. Finally, they will always give this kind of diagrams, graph and charts to let you look at the overview lah. Okay, so generally income wise, it's an uptrend. This is the 2000X3 trend in terms of their membership, donation, admission. There's no comparison with the previous year, so we can only see X3. The operating expenses are also steadily increasing, so it might have a stable margin. You can see that in terms of the percentage, now this is the one that we need to keep it as low as we can. So much more expenses are spent on operating than maintaining. So would that also suggest the risk of your conservation effort may not be sufficient? We do not know until they give us more information. Okay, the number of visitors from members and non-members are also increasing. The number of members are also increasing. So it looks like everything is quite positive for this particular charity. Okay, now this time the Preseen information is very straightforward. So some of those things that I think I just want to finish off with some final reminders to you. Okay, now remember that a charity is MPO, so the way they want to measure objectives, measure their performance can be very different from profit-making organization. So don't forget your value for money, the 3E, because every time when people donate money to you, they want to see how economical is your spending, how efficient is your spending, how effective are you achieving your objectives. So always bear in mind that this is one of the key aspects of MPO or charity. Okay, now when you answers your question, so do remember, use headings and then only your points. Okay, now don't forget your professional marks. Like example, anything that requires you to have a special format, you have to follow. There's usually one question, not all the time, but usually one question that asks you to prepare 2 presentation slides with a note. So please remember, the slides will need to be brief and concise point, because when you do slides, you don't write all the lengthy essay. The essay come under the notes, so don't forget that. Okay, now these are the key things that I think you have to bear in mind. Okay, now it's a very straightforward case because it's about charity. If you look at the overview, they're just telling you what is this charity all about, who are their key stakeholders, how do they get money, okay, and what are their key activities, and a bit of their governance and risk. So if you just look at that, it's a very simple case study. So I believe the exhibit is the one that will reveal to you the question. So like I said, we don't really know what can the question be. For example, they can just give you an exhibit that relates to a conservation project, and in the conservation project they test you about project management. So it has nothing much to do with the case, except that we know because it's a charity, they have many sites, they do a conservation project. They can give an exhibit that's to do with digital transformation, and you can see there's a lot of things in the case study that give us opportunities to bring in the advancement of technology, and how that all these advancements will be so helpful for the charities to increase the level of donations, for the charity to enhance the experience. And they have been reminding us about creativity, about innovation. So that kind of exhibits can all be likely, right? Okay, so cybersecurity is another thing. So you could expect all these can be one possible area, all right, that they could test over here. Now, since they give you a lot of risks, I mean, it's easy for questions on risk management to be tested lah. They can ask you to assess the risk, talk about whether do you think how bad is the impact, how high is the likelihood. They can ask you for risk management strategy. So that kind of things are all to do with risk, which is quite typical. Okay, now because the question gave a long list of their performance measure, I think is actually quite good for performance management questions to come in, and especially they talk about compliance. So it's important for you to see whether the charity is operating in such a way that they meet their expectation of the stakeholder and they also comply with the local regulation. So that become an important aspects. Okay, so maybe they want to buy a new site and whether the buying of the site is something worthy. Okay, now because they deal with a lot of stakeholders, so I think if you ask me, stakeholder analysis is another area that I could easily relate to it. All right, now so this could all be possible area. So I really, like I tell you, it's impossible for me to look at a case and tell you what I can test. I can test you anything, you know. I can test you example, I can test you a question on leadership. I can say the charity suddenly has a change in the CEO because the previous guy retired, and then ask you to talk about the culture. I can do that, and that has totally nothing to do with the pre-scene. So that's why I say don't use the pre-scene to prejudge what must come out. It's not like that. Okay, so our objective is not about knowing, predicting what's coming out, but preparing by remembering what is in the pre-scene. But please do spend some time to read up on things like the board of trustees, what they must do and stuff like that, because at least these are more unique to charity. Okay, now I think this time is a very short and simple case study, and even the case is not very long. So that's all I will do as a run through with you. It's one of the shortest and easiest, as in not so complicated lah, that I think so far we have been through in SBL. So that's all, guys. I hope this walkthrough will help you to prepare for your exam in March. And sorry I couldn't do this earlier, so I only leave you all with this couple of days to run through it. Alright, thank you very much and all the best. Bye bye.